In the year 1999, a corpse descends from the cosmos, right into your backyard. The ultimate in science fiction. An alien thriller. A threat unlike any other. This is the Midwest Angelica.
Hello there, internet dwellers. Welcome back to another video.
The year is 1985. We are given a voiceover by scientist Dr. Lucas Michaels. He explains that scientists at the Glenn Research Center picked up an anomalous biosignature around Jupiter's orbit. After closer inspection, the object was identified as a corpse floating through space. The scientists were hoping to make contact with the object when it reaches Earth's orbit in 1999. NASA formed a new group known as Heavenly Operation and Material Examination, otherwise known as HOME. The group's sole purpose was to investigate the object known as AZ-001, hide the existence from the public, and make contact when it lands in 1999. We learn that Dr. Lucas Michaels went missing in 1989, and his whereabouts are unknown. The time skips to 1995. And we are introduced to Dr. Ray O'Connor. We learn that AZ-001 is emanating waves similar to waves in human brains when in a deep sleep state. This suggests that the corpse isn't in fact a corpse, but it's just in a deep slumber. The day had come. AZ-001 was in low Earth orbit. A chunk had detached itself from the main body of AZ-001, labelled as AZ-001 Alpha, and was headed straight for Nebraska, USA. Footage then cuts to a home team recording making contact with Alpha. In the video, we see researchers dressed in orange hazmat suits walking through a field with radio chatter in the background. Listening in on the radio chatter, you hear the panic in their voices as they realise what they've gotten themselves into.
You see that up there? How is that thing? Fucking Christ, that's huge. What the fuck did we get into? Oh Lord. What Samuel is that?
They get orders to try and eradicate AZ-001 Alpha, and we see the anomaly come to life after being set on fire. Unfortunately, this wasn't enough. There are multiple shots showing the tentacles of Alpha and the researcher looking on in despair. In one shot you see tendrils crawling up towards the researcher's helmet, and we see the gruesome demise of one of the researchers. A close-up can then be seen of the researcher's helmet on the floor with an entity crawling out of it. The video then cuts to static. The next video, titled Attention, is an emergency call to action for the public who live in the counties shown on screen. A free evaluation will be given out for people experiencing general sleep problems such as insomnia, sleepwalking, and even strange dreams. They say the reason this was happening was due to testing of an experimental pesticide in the local area. The next video is from the perspective of a couple of guys who own a ranch where Alpha had landed. This was most likely taken around the same time Home was recording their footage of the entity. The footage shows two panicked men rushing outside because they heard their dog barking in the early hours of the morning. Naturally, they believed this to be an intruder, so one of the men armed themselves. We see the cameraman stood outside listening to his dog bark. Just before the camera cuts, we see an alien-like figure from the darkness. Due to the degraded footage, only a few frames were recoverable in what happened next. The images show the family dog being taken over by this alien creature. Not knowing what he's looking at, one of the men opened fire, but it wasn't enough. What we are witnessing is the beginning of the infection. The cameraman Colin Jones escapes the ranch and looks out over the horizon to what I believe is his ranch with two tendrils rising high above. We hear him puke and the camera cuts to a beautiful shot of the entity in front of the sunrise before the word family appears and makes the camera stutter. The time then skips nearly 12 hours ahead, and we see a shot of the ranch drenched in a red fog. The next video, Starkill, shows us just how powerful this contagion is. Within 300 milliseconds of the infection making contact, it completely takes over the body's cells. It is recommended the contagion be destroyed on site by any means necessary. The codename given to this contagion is Starkill. In the next video, we learn a researcher named Dr. Andrew Evans visits the containment site of Alpha for research purposes. We get audio footage of the doctor coughing and instructing the on-site team to close off a certain area for sample extraction. He then returns to Home HQ and we get a recreation of the events that transpire. Dr. Evans walks into the sample storage and drops off the samples from AZ001 Alpha. After refilling the water cooler, he takes a cup of water over to Dr. O'Connor.
Hey, I brought you some water. Thought you might have wanted a cup.
Thanks, Andrew. Were you able to get the results you wanted?
Fortunately, much of the alpha chunk was too necrotic to really get any good data and samples from it. We'll likely have to find some alpha chunks connected to the main body of AZ001.
Sorry to hear that. I think I might be able to get you the new data you want once you figure it out. So I'll have to get back to you tomorrow on that.
That's alright. We can discuss more about it tomorrow after the meeting.
After the conversation, Evans returns to his desk and starts displaying weird behavior. It's safe to say that whatever this infection is has the ability of mimicking human behaviour. Dr. Evans then visits storage 3B for unknown reasons. We see a purple blip appear before Dr. Evans can exit. This is when the infection's true nature is shown and Home HQ goes under lockdown. After neutralizing Dr. Evans, his body is taken to be examined post-mortem. The scans of his body show an infestation of black circles all over the body. The tape goes on to suggest that this was an assassination attempt. Additionally, we learn that Dr. O'Connor and a vial of AZ001 have gone missing. My theory here is that it wasn't an assassination attempt, and in fact the moment Dr. Evans landed at the containment site, his fate was sealed. I believe the infection lay dormant in his body and metastasized when he arrived back at Home HQ. Either this or Dr. Evans was already dead before reaching home and was in fact being puppeteered by this alien species. It is alluding to the fact that Dr. Evans or someone else there purposefully released AZ001. The next video, titled Bulletin, is of a public access announcement showing the schedule of programs and messages from the local Long Pine Midwest Church, inviting people to attend Sunday service on the 31st of January. The bulletin then goes on to thank the volunteers in the weekend service. At first, this seems quite insignificant, but will make more sense soon. Things start kicking up a notch in the next video, titled Azazel. The video is from the Long Pine Police Department and prefaces the video by saying the two officers named Sam Page and Andrew Webster involved in this recording died in the line of duty on the 12th of February 1999. It starts with a missing persons notice interrupting a movie. The list of missing people match some of the names of people who helped with the Sunday service at the Long Pine Midwest Church. They have yet to be located. An anonymous call to dispatch is recorded stating that there is some kind of sacrifice going on in the local church.
911, please state your emergency.
I'm at 876 Pine Lane in Long Pine, right next to the church. Now, I can't really say for certain, but there's some kind of sacrifice going on.
Okay, we'll be right there. Could you elaborate, please?
Yeah, it's a human sacrifice. I hear screams. It seems to be like a pagan ritual or something of the sort.
Okay. Just hold tight. We'll be right there. Please stay on the line.
The two officers mentioned at the start of the video are called onto the scene. They arrive at the church and begin taking photos of what they see. We will talk more on these photos later. What's important for now is the diagram labelled altar. The video cuts to body cam footage showing a shadowy figure down a tunnel stood ominously. This is Officer Page, and apparently is the last known appearance with his body pending recovery. The video cuts again to what I assume is the body cam of Andrew Webster in a wooded area. He notices a tall structure looming overhead and decides to investigate it further. The results aren't pretty. This structure appears to be what the drawings of the altar were trying to convey, an offering of souls to the body of the fallen. On further inspection, we can see that some of the people attached to this altar are still alive. The video then cuts to Webster walking back to where he came from, but due to the shortness of breath and panic in the voice, you can tell he is paranoid about being followed, and he was right to think this way.
Hello?
From what I can gather of the footage, Webster is sat down looking around with the camera until he pans onto a figure walking towards him. You can see multiple tendrils appear from behind him before the camera cuts off. The man in question is yet to be identified. Since the incident, an unmarked military presence who we can assume to be home has taken control of the area and threatened the police department to stay quiet. The next video, Stages, shows how Starkill evolves over time. It starts by feeding on any available biomass. It then hunts for the most intelligent life forms to assimilate. Once assimilation is complete, it begins self-replication. This involves building hubs such as altars and temples, which in turn birth larger life. It is hypothesized that it is doing this in order to reach critical mass, but it is unknown what will happen once it does. A map is then shown of the predicted size the network will reach. The situation is looking dire. It looks as though AZ-001 will take the whole of America if nothing is done. That's when we are introduced to the Deathbringers in the next video titled Homebound. In this video, we see Home Military Branch Delta kicking into action. Soldiers named Deathbringers are sent to each location that we know AZ-001 has assimilated so far. What follows is a montage of beautiful destruction. The threat has been contained. Or has it? What follows is a top-secret classification broadcast led by General Garrett C. Piso. He explains how they have eradicated AZ-001 and there are still spores in the atmosphere but are useless without a central biomass hub. He goes on to say that the AZ-001, also known as Starkill, comes in cycles and is an apocalyptic event that wipes out civilization. But then something very unexpected happens.
Admiral Nero, I commend your efforts. You lurked among the shadows as you played your hand. I'm fully aware. You may try to kill me now, but know the man speaking in front of this community right now is actually a death row inmate scheduled for execution. I too am playing your game, Nero, and I'm...
It turns out, this wasn't General Garrett C. Piso at all. This was a death row inmate named Isaac Dunn. This whole broadcast was a gambit to get the attention of Admiral Nero, to let him know General Piso knows the truth. But what is the truth? And who is Admiral Nero? This is Admiral Nero, the first apostle of Azazel. We'll talk more about Admiral Nero later, But for now, it turns out that Admiral Nero had it all planned out. He let Home think they had eradicated AZ-001, but it was just the beginning. At the end of the video, we see a new chunk break off AZ-001 named Beta Chunk. It seems like victory was celebrated too early in this case, and Hope may truly be doomed for humanity. The next video, titled Pause, shows a normal weather report in the Kansas City area, until you see something very peculiar.
They fly now? They fly now!
They appear to be evolving. In the video Easter, we learn how AZ-001 and its break-off chunks communicate with each other. To simplify the explanation, these neurons are part of the main entity's central nervous system, and they are responsible for transmitting communication signals to different parts of the entity's body. This means that no matter where the chunks of AZ-001 are, they will all get the information at the same time. Dr. Stanley Vega, who was the person who made this report, then takes part in a test that he believes to be an infection screening test. Little does he know that he has just become a guinea pig to test his own theory. 3 Podolsky samples are entered into the base of his neck, and the tests begin. At the beginning of the test, he states his name, his date of birth, the city he is from, his home ID, and a baseline phrase that only he is aware of. The first test begins. At the end of the test, he is asked to re-enter the information he gave at the start, and we start to see some subtle differences. The date of birth, the home ID, and the baseline phrase has changed. Something is beginning to happen to Dr. Vega. The second test begins. When entering the information this time, everything has changed. He thinks his name is John Carlisle, his date of birth has changed, and he believes he is from Long Pine, Nebraska. The home ID has changed to an address, and the baseline phrase says, "I pray every morning," and... If we take what we know about the Podolsky neuron and add in a few more factors, the puzzle starts to piece together. We know that Podolsky neurons are connected to a main central system and learn information at the same time, meaning that all structures and life forms created by AZ-001 have a shared knowledge. Where have we seen the location Long Pine, Nebraska before? In the video titled Azazel. And what was built near to the church in that video? The altar. And who was part of the Sunday service of said church who was reported missing? John Carlisle.
Oh yeah, it's all coming together.
The third test begins. When prompted to recall information, the only word that the subject can say is Easter. After looking in the comments to search for answers, username Laffer002 states the following. The patient only being able to say Easter is an obvious reference to a character in Chainsaw Man who could completely flood a person's senses with all the information that exists in the universe, and all the person can say is Halloween. If we pair this information with one description of Azazel, we see that they might be onto something. Azazel was a fallen angel, known for giving forbidden knowledge to humans. Maybe this is exactly what has happened here. Dr. Vega was flooded with all information of everyone assimilated by AZ-001, to the point where his brain fried. At the end of the video, we can see a prototype of a probe that can extract data from the plane of communication that the entity uses to communicate to itself, called the Akashic Plane. In order for this to work efficiently, Podolsky clusters are needed, meaning they will be inserting samples into the probes. This is also what we were most likely seeing in the back of the video titled Pause. This is the way the humans will gather intel against Azazel and will fight back. Now we come to the last video in the series at this point in time, titled Babylon. This is a deeper look into behind the scenes of Operation Homebound and how Home Delta acquired Dr. Vega for the test in the previous video. 75% of the staff at Home HQ have been infected and are undergoing work as phantoms. We will touch on this more soon. A recorded interaction between a Dr. Robert Spencer and Dr. Gamma Churchill is then shown, which talks through a plan to acquire Dr. Vega and his lab assistant Dr. Ezra in Home HQ and take him back to a secure Delta site known as Nazareth. Churchill says that Operation Homebound will commence on April 4th, but the actual operation didn't start until April 13th, so what happened to delay? We see as the unit walks through that HQ has been completely overrun by AZ-001 and has accumulated enough biomass to form something known as a temple classification, and that wraith entities will be birthed by this temple in as little as 12 days. They need to act quick. The unit splits off into two groups, one to collect samples from the temple and the other to collect Dr. Vega. Once Dr. Vega is successfully transferred, the pre-screening test begins by asking a very specific set of questions while hooked up to a machine. I assume this is to make sure that Dr. Vega isn't actually a phantom. After Dr. Vega clears the test, Dr. Solomon Ezra is called in for the same test. We learn that when Dr. Vega was being extracted, that Dr. Ezra was transferred to the main lab facility before the extraction happened. Dr. Ezra's answers are interesting, to put it lightly. There seemed to be a level of lateral thinking when it came to Dr. Vega's answers, but with Dr. Ezra, everything is stoic and cold. Just listen to some of these answers.
It's a Saturday night and you decide to cook dinner for the whole family. What made you make this decision?
If I were to do that, it would be because I was hungry.
You see a man and woman embracing each other in a field. There are white clouds dotted against a blue sky. What are you thinking at this moment?
I don't know. I'm not sure. Why would I be in the field? But what purpose does it serve? What is the purpose of the sky?
We learn that Dr. Ezra isn't Dr. Ezra anymore. Dr. Robert Spencer, the man asking the questions of this test, orders the subject to be euthanized by injection.
You say your knowledge of the world is greater than anybody you've met?
Yes, I would say that applies to me. Actually, I know it does.
And what about your concept of infinity? Can you see it clearly?
Yes, I can.
Code 66, calling. Administer asphyxiation agent.
Code 66, error. Task cannot be completed. Error, 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 error.
Unfortunately, this doesn't work, and the subject was able to break free and put Dr. Spencer into a critical condition before being terminated. The video ends with Dr. Churchill apologizing to Dr. Spencer for allowing Ezra into the site. We learn that Spencer has been infected and was put into cryosleep to slow down the infection and to preserve the knowledge that Spencer has. Churchill goes on to say that he thinks he has found a way to reverse the effects of the Starkill infection that could grant immortality. And this is where the series halts for now. Your heads are probably spinning just as mine is right now, so let's try and make sense of everything and put it into an order of events, and I will give you my theories as I go along. Future releases of the series may completely shoot down my theories, but I'm just working with what I have right now. So, in 1985, AZ-001 is first spotted in Jupiter's orbit by Dr. Lucas Michaels. Once they realise the object will collide with Earth, NASA form a new division called HOME, which specifically deals with AZ-001. Dr. Lucas Michaels then goes missing in 1989. We have heard about him only one more time in the series, but I believe he is going to play a significant role in future episodes. I say this because in 1995, Dr. Ray O'Connor, who shared an office space with Dr. Andrew Evans, discovered that the entity is emanating theta waves. At first, I thought this meant that the entity itself is in a slumber, but what if it had an even more sinister meaning? To understand my theory, we need to understand what theta waves are. They are usually recorded in humans when in a deep sleep state and are in connection with creativity, intuition, memories and sensation. So what happens if something like this could be controlled? Could it be that the waves sent out from this entity were directly influencing those who were observing it back in 1985? Do you not find it ironic that the people who discovered this entity named it AZ001? We learn that the name of the entity later on is Azazel, AZ. Either this is a big coincidence, or Azazel is a lot more powerful than this series is letting on, and influenced the people who discovered it to name it AZ. I believe this is why Dr. Lucas Michaels went missing and was never found. He was being influenced by Azazel, but to do what? I can't say at this time. This theory is backed up by a public announcement in 1995. In the video Attention, suggesting that pesticides used in the local area have been causing symptoms such as sleepwalking, weird dreams and insomnia. The description of the video states that there were no pesticide tests conducted in any of the areas at the time of the announcement. The state in which these supposed tests were conducted was in Iowa, the state right next to Nebraska. We get to January 16th, 1999, where Azazel enters Alio and a chunk of AZ001 is detached and headed for Nebraska, USA at 1:26 AM. Cut to the Jones Ranch where Avery Jones is awoken to the sound of his dog barking at 4:31 AM. His son Colin decides to record the commotion with his video camera. At 4:46 AM you can hear the dog struggle with something in the distance before an alien creature appears and the camera cuts. Pictures showing Avery Jones can be seen being assimilated. Colin runs inside the ranch and realizes his family has succumbed to the alien entities. It is 5:25 AM, and home ground units make their way towards AZ001 Alpha to investigate further. Once they realize they bit off more than they can chew, they try to light it on fire. Around this time, Colin is looking back on his ranch and notices tendrils coming out of the top. The time skips to 5:42 AM and Colin is puking, most likely already infected at this point. He looks out to the horizon again and we see a big entity stood in the distance. I believe what we are seeing is an amalgamation of the Jones family. This is most likely why the word family is flashing on screen before it cuts off. We can assume that Colin became one with his family. I assume the next video in the timeline is the analysis report of the contagion titled Starkill. This is when the scientists discovered just how fast the infection can spread. The community announcement from the video bulletin then comes next. The original air date for this bulletin was January the 25th, 1999, and shows a list of volunteers who are helping out with Sunday service. Some of these names end up in a missing persons report at the start of the Azazel episode. It is now the 28th of January, and Dr. Andrew Evans returns to the Alpha trunk to take more samples. It is at this point when inspecting the trunk that I believe he is infected and turned into what is known in this series as a phantom, which explains the video title Phantoms. I will touch on this more when the time is right. When Dr. Evans returns, it is here that I believe Dr. Ray O'Connor is also infected and turned into another phantom. Dr. Evans then visits Storage 3B, and before exiting, we see an unknown purple blip enter the area before Evans' body begins contorting and he is neutralized. At first I believe this could have been the moment that Dr. Ray O'Connor got infected, but this is shot down by the last words Dr. Evans says before turning into a monster.
Wait, who are you?
I think I have a theory on who or what this blip might be. Where else have we seen a purple blip similar to this in the series? In the last video titled Babylon, where Home Delta extract Dr. Vega. Notice the colours represented by Home Delta. If this is true, then it could suggest that Home Delta have their own agendas when it comes to AZ001. I believe an operative working for Delta was sent in to retrieve a sample of Alpha. I'm unsure whether they knew about Dr. Evans' condition, but I believe he was just collateral. The next video in the timeline is titled Azazel. This is where we learn that some of the people helping with the service at the Long Pine Church have gone missing. We know at this point that Ray O'Connor is definitely a phantom, but what exactly is a phantom? This video goes on to tell us after Officer Sam Page and Andrew Webster respond to a dispatch call about an alleged ritual sacrifice at the local church. We see a picture left behind by phantoms before sacrificing themselves to the altar, not far from the church's location. Here is what it says.
A gift of the blood of an angel, phantom in its appearance, but insides churn with flesh and blood of the stars. The blessed walk in silence, blissfully closer to his sacred realm. Ascended beyond mortals, we have become apostles of Azazel. Altar, an offering of souls to the body of the fallen. reconstruction of God's realm, infinite in its cycle of life, death but a moment of passing time. He is infinity incarnate.
Here is my understanding of what phantoms are. The infection takes over the mind and body of the subject and successfully emulates human behavior. It does this to multiple people until there is enough biomass to create a structure such as an altar. These altars give birth to bigger life forms, which can then go on to create bigger structures, known as temples, in which bigger life forms can be birthed. The ultimate goal of the Starkill infection is to consume enough biomass to reach critical mass. This in turn means the extinction of planet Earth. Both officers in the video are stated as dead, but only one of their bodies was recovered. I believe the other officer most likely got assimilated and joined the altar. Robert Spencer, a CIA operative, who you will remember was responsible for the extraction of Dr. Vega, took over the area and threatened the local police department to stay quiet on the matter. We know that Robert Spencer is working with Home Delta. On the 19th of February, exactly 1 week after Webster's body is taken away by Delta, Dr. Stanley Vega records his findings on the Podolsky neurons and the Akashic plane that AZ-001 uses to communicate. What's interesting about this video Easter is that it was originally a video created for Home HQ. However, at the very start of the video we see a quick flash that the video is part of Home Delta's archival material. It seems like Delta is censoring information relating to the Akashic plane and how to access the knowledge within. This text is shown for just over a second before being marked as classified and a Delta logo appears. So why is Delta so keen on censoring information regarding knowledge of the Akashic plane? I believe it is because they know that Home HQ is compromised, and all it takes is one phantom to access this information for Azazel to be aware that the humans are aware. Unfortunately, I think that this has already happened. The next part in the timeline breaks off from this part of the Easter video and brings us to the video Babylon. This is where we hear the reconnaissance reports on Home HQ and how the temple classification has been confirmed, with the fear of Wrath classifications to be birthed shortly after. The meeting between Robert Spencer and Gamma Churchill on the 13th of March talks about gathering samples from the temple and bringing them in for research purposes. It is also here that Churchill tells Spencer to bring in Dr. Vega, as he has knowledge on the Akashic field. This is also where we hear the name Lucas Michaels once more. This is the researcher who was the first to detect AZ-001's presence in Jupiter's orbit. If you remember, he went missing. This is what is said.
Speaking of which, have you retrieved the new info on Lucas Michaels?
Yes, I have. It's in the data room. I think you'll be interested in our findings. We're not sure what to make of it yet.
I have my own theory on who Lucas Michaels is, and I will tell you towards the end. It's quite a stretch though. So the units are sent out, and both the samples and the two doctors are extracted and brought back to undergo a SIN test, which stands for Sacrilegious Identification Neurological Test. In other words, in order to pass this test, you must answer virtuously. We know that Dr. Vega passes, but Dr. Ezra fails. It's at this moment that Dr. Robert Spencer is attacked and put into a critical condition. Because of his infection, he is put into a cryopod to slow the infection and preserve his knowledge. I believe it is on the same day that the Akashic field test on Dr. Vega takes place, and this is where Gamma Churchill potentially finds out that the infection can be reversed and used for immortality. I believe the probe we see at the end of the Easter video may be the key to unlocking the secrets of AZ-001. We see one of these probes in the background of the Pause video. I think they were successful in breaking through to the Akashic plane, and this is where they learned that Admiral Nero was in fact part of Azazel. This would explain why the real General Piso had a death row inmate take his place in the broadcast that follows. Operation Homebound comes next. At the start of this video we get a message stating that the video was approved by Admiral Nero. This is where the Deathbringers from Delta destroy all sites known to be contaminated with AZ-001 Alpha, Home HQ, the Jones family, the Jones Ranch, and the Long Pine Church. The operation is seemingly a success, and a secret conference is held by the fake General Piso to address Admiral Nero. This was also approved for broadcast by Admiral Nero. After General Piso is assassinated, a speech from Admiral Nero begins.
All the world's a stage, and all the men and women really players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts, his act being 7 ages. Piso was careless. Now you are the last of your kin left alive in this facility. But the truth cannot be set free. Home has completed its goal. The complete eradication of the Star King. That is the story that I've ever so carefully woven, but the truth lies obscured beyond the veil. My dear child, there is no need to worry, for all is right in the world.
Chunk Beta breaks off from AZ-001 and lands in the water. A new breed of life form is about to begin. But just who is Admiral Nero? It is obvious that Home Delta wasn't as safe as they originally thought. The top rank of the branch turned out to be the first apostle of Azazel. And this brings me to my theory. What if Admiral Nero was none other than Lucas Michaels? If you remember, Lucas Michaels was the first person to report Azazel's presence in 1985. The first apostle? As you can see in the video Homebound, we see Admiral Nero talking with one of the Deathbringers sent to eradicate AZ-001 Alpha. This means that we are seeing him in one of the locations the Deathbringers was sent to destroy, and that Alpha wasn't eradicated at all. I believe this is a long-winded theory, and I think we will most likely learn who Admiral Nero is in the future episodes, but it has definitely been fun dissecting this series and giving my opinions on what I think is happening. What do you guys think is happening? A chess match seems to be happening between General Piso and Admiral Nero, and at this moment in time, Admiral Nero is winning. Give me your theories down below, and I'll be sure to read through them. I've never really been good at coming up with my own theories, so I apologise if it felt all over the place. I'll definitely be keeping my eyes out for future episodes of Midwest Angelica, and changing my theories as new information is brought to us. For now, all we can do is wait. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you made it this far, then why not consider leaving a like rating and subscribing with notifications on. I want this video to be a success, so any help would be greatly appreciated. Be sure to go check out Midwest Angelica for yourself. I believe they have their own merch and Patreon you can support. All links will be found below. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you did enjoy, and I'll see you in the next video.